I was folding dish towels in the kitchen when the knock came, hard, like a fist with something to prove. The kind of knock you don't forget, not because it was loud, but because it carried something else, something sharp. I wiped my hands on my apron and opened the door. There she was, my daughter, Tanisha. And behind her, her husband, Demarian, standing like he owned the place. No phone call, no text, not even a, "Hey mama, we're in town." Just a pair of designer suitcases, matching coats, and faces tight like they'd bitten into lemons. "We'll be staying for a while," she said, walking right past me like it was hers to walk into. I didn't get a hug, no smile, just that look, like I was the maid they didn't tip. Demarian grunted a hello, barely. Tanisha didn't even ask how I'd been. Instead, she tossed her coat on my favorite chair and turned, "Where's the guest room?" Her tone, entitled, like she was checking into a hotel she paid for. I smiled. Because that's what we do, right? Us mamas who've been taught to carry dignity like a purse with a busted strap, quietly, even when it's falling apart. They dragged in their bags like royalty, but I'd seen more humility from strangers at the bus stop. As I watched her head upstairs, my heart slipped into memory. She used to call me her everything. Back when it was just me, her, and secondhand shoes. I worked 3 jobs, scrubbing folks' houses while skipping lunch so she'd have enough for dinner. I'd come home smelling like bleach and broken dreams, but she'd run to the door like I was somebody. Now I'm just a convenience. She got with Demarian and never looked back. I didn't even get an invite to the engagement dinner. Not a seat, not a phone call, not a slice of that fancy cake they posted on Facebook. And the day she moved out, all she said was, "Don't worry about me, I'm not coming back." But here she was. In my house, no apology, just assumptions. Demarian leaned against the doorframe of the guest room, peered in and muttered, "Ain't got no smart TV?" I said, "No baby, just the regular channels." He rolled his eyes. "Figures." Tanisha came down 20 minutes later, looked inside the fridge and frowned. "You ain't got almond milk?" "I didn't know y'all were coming," I said gently. She turned away like my words were air. I fixed dinner, fried chicken, greens, cornbread, food that raised her. They ate like it was owed, said nothing after. No thank you. Just silence and scraped plates. I washed the dishes alone. Every word they spoke to me was a request. "You got an extra phone charger? Where's the iron? Can you wash our towels?" I told myself, it's just a few days. Be patient. But patience got sharp when it's picked at. That night, I laid in bed staring at the ceiling fan spinning slow. My hands hurt. My chest felt hollow. "Why do they think they can treat me like this?" I whispered to no one. Maybe I was too soft, too giving. Maybe I gave so much she thought I had no needs of my own. The house was quiet, but the silence wasn't peace. It was abandonment in surround sound. I tried to pray, but the words got stuck. Felt like God went quiet, too. Felt like he didn't want to see me like this. An old woman turned invisible by her own child. The next day, I walked into the living room to grab my Bible. I stopped when I heard Demarian's voice. He was on the phone, laughing low. "Nah, this old lady don't even lock her medicine cabinet. We good." My feet turned to stone. My hands started to shake. I realized then, they weren't just visiting, they were hiding, using me. I locked my bedroom door that night, first time I ever had to. Sat on the edge of my bed, hands clutched, knees weak, heart racing. Something's off. This ain't just a visit, it's a setup. I laid down with my thoughts in knots, and when morning came, my wallet was gone. The house was quiet, but I wasn't asleep. I'd been lying there for hours, just staring at the ceiling, the kind of tired that don't come from working, but from being disrespected in your own home. I was about to close my eyes when I heard her, Tanisha, whispering. Her voice floated down the hallway like a snake in the grass. "Mama don't ask questions. That's why she's perfect for this." My breath caught. I sat up slowly, careful not to creak the floorboards. That one sentence, light, casual, cut deeper than any argument ever could. Like I was just a tool in her plan, not a mother, not a woman who gave up her life for her. I got up, moved like I was floating, drifted out toward the kitchen. That's when Demarian walked in through the back door. Smelled like weed, eyes low, attitude lazy. He tossed an envelope on the dining table like it was junk mail. Walked off without a word. I looked at it. No return address. My name was typed on the front. I opened it. A late payment notice from some storage unit over on 79th Street. But what made my knees buckle wasn't the amount due. It was the fact that the account was in my name, my full name, my social security number. I grabbed the edge of the table just to keep from falling. My body went cold, like I stepped into a freezer and shut the door behind me. They were using me, my name, my credit. The rage didn't come fast. It came slow and steady, like water heating under a lid. I didn't say nothing right then. No yelling, no confrontation. I just sat with it, let it soak through me. I needed to know how deep this went. Later that night, I stood in the laundry room pretending to fold towels, but really, I was remembering things. Like the time she was 16, and I told her no, I wouldn't co-sign for that shiny new car she wanted so bad. She ain't speak to me for 3 whole months. Back then, I called it teenage hormones. Now I see it different. That entitlement been sitting inside her for years, just waiting for the right moment to bloom. I walked into my room and pulled out my laptop. I checked my credit score. It had dropped like a stone. Accounts I never opened. Balances I didn't touch. Debt with my name, but someone else's fingerprints all over it. I didn't cry. My throat tightened, eyes burned, but I held it. Then, while putting the laptop away, I bumped the corner of the bookshelf. A frame fell. The photo inside cracked against the floor. It was from Thanksgiving 2 years ago. Tanisha smiling like she meant it. Me holding the turkey like it meant something. I looked down at the shattered glass, the broken smiles. I didn't pick it up. "Some things ain't worth putting back together," I whispered. I went into the kitchen and pulled out a notebook I'd tucked in the junk drawer years ago. Flipped past grocery lists and old to-dos. Found a blank page. And I started writing. The date. What I heard. What I found. Every little detail. Because if they were playing dirty, I was gonna play smart. I took that notebook with me outside and sat on the porch. The air was thick with summer heat, but I didn't mind. Out there, with the crickets and the occasional siren in the distance, I could think straight. My neighbor, Miss Geraldine, was walking her dog. "You all right, Miss Lottie?" she asked, pausing at the gate. I gave her a small smile. "Mm-hmm. Just needed a little fresh air." She nodded, kept walking. From inside the house, I heard laughter, glasses clinking, them celebrating something. Maybe it was nothing. Maybe it was everything. Either way, it made my skin crawl. I replayed her voice again. "Mama don't ask questions." And I said, quiet to myself, "They think silence means weak, but even a rock don't speak, and still, it don't break easy." I stayed out there till the porch light flickered. Then I went back inside. Later that night, with the moon sliding past my window, I opened the notebook again. Wrote at the top of a fresh page, "Day 1. They've taken too much. That ends now." The pen shook in my hand. Not from fear, no, from resolve. The kind that builds when you've had enough. Tomorrow I'll act like I don't know a thing, but I'll be watching. I was folding laundry, a ragged old t-shirt, faded but clean, when DeMarion walked in with that slow swagger. He said, matter-of-factly, "We want you to co-sign this loan." He slid papers across the kitchen table, as though it were already done. The room spun on me. Audacity rushed my chest, but I swallowed it, kept my face even. "Why can't you sign it yourselves?" I asked. The silence that followed was heavier than any argument. They didn't answer, because there was no answer. They expected me to pick up the burden, as always. I excused myself. Took the papers into my bedroom. Met the glare from the single lamp. I scanned the fine print. Business in Tanisha's name, but using my credit. Predatory rates. I called a friend from church who handles finance. She didn't lie. This deal's a death trap. My head ached, but I refused to lay down. With a pen, I scrawled "declined" across the document, put it back on the table as though it never frightened me. Because I'd been quiet too long. Then the explosion. They saw the papers. Tanisha's voice cracked like a whip. You always said you'd support us. This ain't support, it's sabotage. Demarian paced, through words sharp and hot. Guilt, shame, betrayal flew through the air. I raised my voice, quiet but firm. Support don't mean sacrificing myself for your mistakes. My heart pounded. My spine straightened. They flinched. I apologized to no one. I looked both in the eye. I've been quiet too long. You took my silence as permission. I slid my folder of evidence, storage bills, loan attempts, name misuse, onto the table. Their faces dropped. Next time you try to steal from me, I said, slow and steady, be ready to lose more than a credit score. The house grew cold. They felt it. Later, I sat on the porch. I wasn't trying to calm down this time. I was gathering myself. I thought of my mother's words. Sometimes you gotta let the church girl in you take her earrings off. Blood is sacred until it's twisted. When it poisons, you draw lines. I was scared, but beneath it, a new something bloomed. Clarity. I was out in the yard that late afternoon, kneeling beside the tomato bed I hadn't touched in months, dirt under my nails, sweat sliding down my temple. That little patch of soil had always been my peace. Used to bring me comfort when I still believed peace could be grown. Every weed I yanked out, I imagined it was a lie, a manipulation, a piece of myself I'd given away without questioning why. My grandmother's voice played soft in the back of my mind. You can't keep feeding folks who bite the hand that feeds them. Tanisha came storming out the back door, her voice sharp like broken glass. You embarrassed me in front of Demarian. I didn't look up, just kept pulling weeds. That silence? It worked harder than any scream. It made her shift on her feet, unsure what to do without a fight to win. She stood there too long, waiting on a reaction I didn't owe her. Then she turned and slammed the screen door so hard it rattled the siding. By dinner time, I was calm. I cooked what I always do on tense nights, black-eyed peas and cornbread. They sat across from me, arms folded, eyes loaded, but I wasn't scared. I put my fork down gentle. Y'all need to start looking for another place. Demarian laughed like it was a joke. You serious? He said. I didn't blink. You got 10 days. Use my roof, not my name. The words came clean, no stutter. For the first time, they didn't know how to respond. Tanisha dropped her fork, leaned back in her chair with a smirk that cracked under pressure. So now I'm the villain. After all I've done for you? I looked her dead in the eye. I didn't raise you to be like this, but I did raise you. Don't forget that. Demarian stood up, tried to puff himself big like he always does, but I didn't flinch. I held that stare until he sat back down. My voice stayed steady. My body didn't move. That scared them more than shouting ever could. I leaned in slow. Law's on my side. I already spoke to someone. Try me again if you want to. They didn't say much after that. Later that evening, after the dishes were cleared and the silence was thick, I walked past the hallway and saw a photo face down on the carpet. I picked it up. Tanisha, no more than 5, wearing my old church hat. One she used to beg to try on when we'd play dress-up. I held it for a while, then went into the closet and pulled out that same hat, dusty and forgotten. I brushed it off gently, whispered, maybe it's time she remembered who raised her and what strength looks like. Before bed, I slipped back into the yard. The sun was nearly gone, sky melting orange into gray. I squatted down near the garden and drew a line in the dirt with my finger. This is the line, I whispered. They cross it again, I won't be silent no more. I walked back inside, poured myself a glass of water, and sat by the lamp with my notebook. I flipped past the pages and wrote, Day 5, warnings are free. Consequences cost. It was around 1 in the afternoon. I'd just come in from folding clothes off the line when I passed through the living room and saw something strange on the tablet left on the coffee table. The screen was still lit. Curiosity slowed me down. I leaned in. It was a listing, an upright piano. My piano, my name, my address, right there. For sale. I blinked once, then again. I knew that piano. Every scuff, every chipped key from when Tanisha was little and would bang on it like she was in some jazz band. I tapped the contact tab. The number listed underneath. Demarian's. My hands tightened around the tablet. I felt the back of my throat burn, but I didn't yell. I didn't march down the hallway swinging. No, not today. I took a screenshot, copied the listing's link, sent it to my email. Quiet as I could, I headed to the back room, my little home office, door squeaky and all. The light from the blinds cut across my desk like jail bars. I clicked on the email, then pulled out a manila folder where I'd been keeping every suspicious document since this all started. That's when I saw it, tucked between utility bills and receipts. A letter from the bank I hadn't opened yet. It was a notice, saying I was late on a loan. A big one. But I never took out any loan. I grabbed my cell and dialed the number, waited through the elevator music. Then a voice. Yes, ma'am. It shows you co-signed 6 months ago. I did not. I never signed anything, I said, slow but steady. Well, we have a waiver here with your signature on file. Send it, I told her. When it hit my inbox and I opened the PDF, my stomach knotted. The signature, it did look like mine, but something was off. A little too perfect, like someone practiced it. Rage crawled into my bones, but I didn't let it boil over. Not yet. I pulled up bank statements, cross-referenced with pawn receipts. Even played back an old voice memo where Tanisha mentioned moving assets around. Piece by piece, the story started forming, without my consent, my knowledge, or my blessing. And then, just like that, a memory slapped me hard. Tanisha was 12. She'd gotten into a fight at school over somebody teasing me. That night, she came home with torn clothes, but her head held high. Don't worry, Mama, she said. I'll always protect you. I'd been so proud. Now I sat in this room, looking at proof that same girl would pawn my past and forge my future just to stay comfortable. Promises don't matter in a forest of liars, I whispered, and I closed the file like I was slamming a coffin. I called out, Demarian, come here a minute. He showed up at the doorway all casual like I'd asked him to pass me the salt. I need your help going over some bills, I said. He stepped inside, looked at the screen, and his body tensed. There it was, listing, loan form, my notes, all spread out like evidence in a courtroom. You tried to use my name as currency. Why? He blinked, then stammered, I don't know what you think. I slid the fraud report across the desk. I'm not asking, Demarian. I've alerted the authorities. You've got until tomorrow to make this right or it becomes a police matter. He didn't move. Not 1 inch. That silence. That was the sound of a boy realizing the mother he thought he could outsmart had been watching all along. I didn't say another word, just stood up, walked to the door, and locked it behind him. My chest was heavy, but it was steady. I sat back down and drafted a letter, one to the local precinct, another to the pawn shop. Before sealing the envelope, I turned to the photo board behind me. There it was, that old picture of my piano from Thanksgiving 3 years ago, before the keys got dusty and the music stopped. I tore it down. No more sentimental pieces to hold me hostage, no more past used as a leash. I leaned in close to the desk and whispered, They don't get to shape my future with pieces of my past. Not anymore. I stepped into the church hall at evening. The scent of polished wood and candles greeted me as I took my seat toward the back. I was invited under the pretense of reconciliation, just like they always do. I tried to keep my face composed, but my heart pounded, remembering all the quiet betrayals that built up to this night. Elnora stood at the pulpit, dressed in her Sunday best. Her voice carried across the hall. Some mothers lose their grip when their children succeed. The sentence landed hard, echoing through the sea of faces. Her eyes flicked toward me, not pity, but something sharper. I felt the silence tighten. I rose without hesitation. I walked down the aisle, holding the broken photo frame from my Thanksgiving long ago. Glass cracked, edges splintered. The crowd shifted. I stopped just before the pulpit. That's not a mother's grief, I said, voice firm. That's a Trojan horse of disdain. The gasp swept the room. Elnora's lips curled in a sneer. You'd stand here and twist our hearts? She spat. She called me obsolete, trying to shame me for growing older, for losing relevance. My daughter's eyes narrowed, her face twisted with fury. But I didn't back down. I accused her of taking my name, stealing my credit, erasing my dignity. Demarian stepped forward to defend her, but I held up the pawn listing, slapped the loan paperwork onto the podium. The room froze. My voice spilled. Don't confuse my silence for weakness. I've only just begun. A hush settled. Then came the slideshow. Family memories, they called it. But through the images projected across the wall, my face was gone. My presence erased. Was Des 16. I stood, pointed. You stripped me from your history, but you can't erase me from your truth. A murmur ran through the crowd as the projector flickered, going dark for a heartbeat. Then it snapped back, revealing images that excluded me intentionally. I felt tears behind my eyes, but I swallowed them. For years, I knelt and prayed in church aisles. Tonight I stood and spoke. I talked about legacy, justice, mothers who raised children with love and sacrifice, and children who return with knives. Some eyes in the audience softened, others glared. I didn't care anymore who judged. Elnora sputtered more. Tanisha's face contorted, anger and confusion tangled on her lips. I didn't demand apologies. Instead, I laid down terms. I'm stepping out. You're welcome under my roof, but never as my heir unless you prove you can be human again. Then I turned and walked out of the hall. The crowd parted. Outside, under the night sky, I stopped and inhaled deep. They thought they'd broken me, I whispered to myself. They broke the wrong woman. The quiet before the storm doesn't always sound like thunder rolling in. Sometimes it's just the sound of your own breathing in a dim room, walls thick with memories. I sat there, my living room, my house, alone. One lamp on, folder in my lap. Everything they'd done, all their moves, laid out in front of me. Pawn receipt, forged loan, bank statements, voice recordings, the signature that wasn't mine, but close enough to trick a system. I'd labeled it all. Notice to family authorities. Bold letters, final words. I picked up my phone, texted Linda, my friend and legal backbone since way back. Be ready by dawn. I'm dropping it if they don't walk. She replied quick. I got you. I took a deep breath, practiced. Not to be perfect, just steady, controlled. Not a tear, not a tremble. The time for crying passed 3 betrayals ago. They came in just before 10. Tanisha in heels like she was headed to brunch. Demarion trailing behind her, jaw tight. They didn't expect silence. They didn't expect me waiting. Here, I said, handing over the folder. You've got 1 hour. Vacate, remove my name, fix every lie you laid down. Tanisha tossed her purse on the chair, smirked. You really think you can scare me, Mama? This ain't one of your church speeches. I didn't blink. I bent down, slid the pawnshop slip and bank fraud report across the floor like a card laid on the table. That's not fear, that's fact. Demarion stepped forward, thought he could still move me with his presence. I stayed put. He reached out, but I didn't flinch. No, son, not this time. I'm not standing down for you, or her, or anybody. Then I brought out the last 2 blades. I know about the forged divorce papers, I said, calm like I was reading scripture. Got the originals, got the file dates. You used that mess to shut me out of my own decisions. Tanisha's hand froze mid-air. Her lips parted, but no sound came out. I tapped my phone, played the clip, her voice whispering, Mama's time is over. That audio bounced off the walls like thunder. You sold my silence for ambition, I said. Now I'm buying it back, with truth. Elnora came storming in from the porch like she'd been waiting for her entrance. You're destroying your own legacy, she shouted. I turned, slow and clean, quoted her Sunday words from last week. Some mothers lose their grip when their children succeed. I smiled, thin and bitter. Some children lose their souls chasing what ain't theirs. I laid the eviction notice on the coffee table. This ends now. Rebuild with respect or lose it all. Ain't no in-between left. I handed it to them. Tanisha just stared. Demarion looked at the door, Elnora's face drained like rain washing paint off a wall. Then came the sound, the front gate clicking shut, loud, sharp, final. They left in silence, car lights cut through the night. I walked outside, stood by the gate, arms folded. My chest rose heavy, but I wasn't falling apart. I was standing up for the first time in a long time, pride tangled with sorrow. But I felt lighter. Back inside, I found my old church hat, the one they mocked years ago, and placed it right back where it belonged, top of the mantel. "This house is mine," I whispered, "and it'll never belong to people who forgot what love looks like." I reached for the front door, locking it slow. My phone buzzed. One message. The sender's name, someone I trusted. That morning, I opened my front door and let the light fall in across the hardwood. The air smelled of cut grass and wet dirt. I picked up the old broom leaning by the railing and began sweeping the porch slow and steady. Each push of that broom felt like I was clearing away more than leaves. The sidewalk, cracked and worn, shimmered in the sun like it had something to say. Peace had a sound. It wasn't silence, but stillness, a kind of ease I hadn't felt in years. Inside, the house didn't creak under tension like it used to. It wasn't loud, but it wasn't empty. It breathed different now. I glanced at my phone. Missed calls from Tanisha. I didn't listen. Not today. Across the street, Mr. Frank waved from behind his paper. His wife, Miss Thelma, sent over a tray wrapped in foil. I opened it. Still warm cornbread. That kind of quiet kindness. It wrapped around my chest, tighter than any apology. I sat down at the kitchen table, old receipts and account statements spread before me. It was a mess, yes, but not beyond repair. I called the loan officer. She said, "It's gonna take time, but you're in the clear." I hung up, let that settle inside me. I reached for a pen and scribbled on an envelope. "Your name still holds value." Because it did. Always had. I dialed David. It had been too long. He answered on the second ring. "Mama? You free for dinner?" I asked. His voice cracked with something soft. "I'll be there. I'll bring the boys." I started planning. A little gathering, nothing big. Just me, some old friends, collard greens, Luther playing low, stories shared across plates. Something real. Later, I pulled down the family photo album. Not to cry. To remember. I looked at those baby faces. All mine, all grown now. And said quietly, "You were raised strong." That strength? It didn't vanish. It waited. I thought about the land down in Mississippi. Still in the family name, I called a local foundation down there, asked how they helped teens who needed direction. "We got programs, but we need space," the woman said. I told her I'd call back with an idea. Maybe it was time that land grew something new. I walked to church later that afternoon, had a word with Pastor Jones. We talked mentorship, single mothers, keeping young folks from losing their light too early. He nodded and said, "That's the kind of work that stays." When I got back, little Jasmine from next door was waiting on the steps. "Miss Madeline, can you show me how to braid?" I looked at those little fingers, all eager and unsure. I sat her down, pulled out a brush. "Baby, let's start with the basics." And we did. 2 days later, a letter came, Demarion's handwriting. I could tell before I even opened it, long-winded, dancing around the words he should have said. Still, he tried. Said he was sorry, wanted to make things right. I sat with it. Then wrote back, "Forgiveness is a door, but you'll have to knock with respect." That was the truth. I did glance at Tanisha's page, saw the cracks starting to show. But I didn't scroll. That kind of watching doesn't help anyone. I took her old necklace from the drawer, placed it on the windowsill. Not out of spite. Just to remember. Not everything soft has to be broken. The wind came through that afternoon, sweeping out the stale corners of the house. I let it in. I let it clean what needed clearing. That Sunday, I stepped onto the porch in my lavender dress, the one I'd saved for good days. Church bells rang down the block, slow and steady. From somewhere down the street, I heard a hymn. "His eye is on the sparrow." I hummed along, not because I was mourning, but because I'd made it. I looked out at the yard, the neighborhood, the porch I swept every morning, and I whispered, this story wasn't about them leaving. It was about me staying. And just as I was pulling the screen door closed behind me, I heard the mailbox rattle. A new envelope, postmarked from Louisiana.